The massive alien warships of the galactic hegemony hung in Earth's orbit like giant metal predators. Their hulls gleamed under the distant sun, weapons systems primed and ready. The fleet stretched as far as the eye could see. Hundreds of vessels of various sizes, from nimble fighters to enormous dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. Inside the hegemony command ship, Admiral Krek surveyed the tactical display with 6 of his eyes, while his remaining 2 focused on reports from his subordinates. The blue-green planet below seemed so fragile, so easily conquerable. Final assault preparations are complete, Admiral reported his second-in-command. Earth's orbital defenses are surrounded on all sides. Admiral Krek made a clicking sound with his mandibles, the equivalent of a satisfied chuckle. And their military response? Minimal and disorganized. Their primitive satellites have been neutralized. Ground-based weapons are ineffective at this range. Their space fleet is scattered and outmatched. The hegemony had conquered 17 solar systems in the last cycle. Humans were merely the latest species to fall before their superior technology and military might. The invasion was proceeding exactly as calculated. Begin bombardment of key military installations in 6 rotations, ordered Krek. Prepare landing forces for... Admiral, interrupted a sensor officer. Movement detected. A vessel is launching from Earth's atmosphere. Krek swiveled his eye stalks toward the main viewer. Show me. The screen shifted to display a single human spacecraft rising through the atmosphere. It was sleek and angular, unlike the blocky defensive satellites they had already destroyed. The ship's hull had an unusual shimmering quality that their sensors couldn't quite define. That's it? Krek asked incredulously. One ship? Yes, Admiral. Designated as UES Phoenix according to intercepted communications, it appears to be on an intercept course with our fleet. Krek's mandibles clicked rapidly in what his species considered uproarious laughter. They send a single vessel against our armada. Broadcast this to all ships. The humans are even more primitive than our intelligence suggested. On Earth, the mood in the Space Defense Force headquarters was grim. Generals and admirals from every nation stared at their displays, watching as their last hope ascended toward the overwhelming alien force. The Phoenix has cleared the atmosphere, announced a technician. All systems nominal. General Wei Chen nodded solemnly. Open a channel to Captain Park. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Phoenix. Captain Geo Park sat in the command chair, her expression calm despite the impossible odds facing her. At 42, she was relatively young for such a command, but her brilliant tactical mind and unflappable demeanor had made her the unanimous choice to lead this mission. Captain Park, you are cleared to proceed with Operation Last Light, said General Chen. May the heavens be with you. Thank you, General, Park replied. The Phoenix will not fail. Around her sat the hand-picked crew, each selected not just for their skills, but for their ability to think outside conventional boundaries. Lieutenant Hannah Kim at navigation, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced precision. Weapons specialist Junho Lee at tactical, his usually jovial face now set with determination. Dr. Sumin Kang at the science station, monitoring the experimental systems that represented humanity's one slim chance of survival. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, reported Communications Officer Ja Won-yoon. They're laughing at us. Let them laugh, Captain Park said calmly. Put their transmission on screen. The alien commander appeared, a nightmarish figure with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. Behind him, other aliens made strange gestures that their translation software identified as gestures of amusement. Humans, the alien commander's translated voice boomed. Your feudal resistance provides welcome entertainment before your inevitable subjugation. Your single-vessel approach demonstrates your species' intellectual limitations. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. Captain Park cut the transmission with a gesture. Status of stealth systems. Operational, replied Engineer Ti Wu Choi. They're scanning us, but they're only seeing what we want them to see. And the quantum core. Dr. Kang checked her readings. Stable and ready. But Captain, once activated, will have no more than 12 minutes before the system requires cooldown. Park nodded. Then we'll make those 12 minutes count. Take us closer, Lieutenant Kim. Standard approach vector. The Phoenix accelerated toward the alien fleet, appearing on their sensors as nothing more than a conventional military vessel, impressive by human standards, but laughably primitive compared to hegemony technology. Aboard the alien command ship, tactical officers began laying bets on how quickly the human vessel would be destroyed once they opened fire. "Should we capture it intact?" asked the second-in-command. "Their technology might provide amusement for our scientists." Admiral Kreck considered this. "Yes, disable their propulsion systems only. I want that ship and its crew preserved as trophies." The Phoenix continued its approach, seemingly oblivious to the danger. Behind their apparent recklessness lay months of preparation and humanity's most closely guarded secret. 3 months earlier, an alien scout ship had crashed in the Antarctic. The recovered technology had given Earth's scientists insights into hegemony systems and vulnerabilities. Working around the clock, they had integrated these discoveries with humanity's most advanced theoretical physics to create weapons and defenses that the aliens wouldn't expect. As the Phoenix drew closer to the front line of the alien fleet, tension on the bridge increased. Every crew member knew what was at stake, not just their lives, but the future of all humanity. "Enemy weapon systems are tracking us," reported Tactical Officer Lee. "They're preparing to fire." "Hold course," ordered Captain Park. "Engineer Choi, status of the quantum displacement drive." "Primed and ready, Captain. Awaiting your command." Park took a deep breath. Their entire plan hinged on getting close enough to deploy their secret weapon, but not so close that they'd be immediately destroyed. "Enemy vessel is locking weapons," Lee announced, his voice tight. "Stand by," Park said calmly. "Just a little closer." On the hegemony command ship, Admiral Kreck watched with amusement. Such bravery. Such foolishness. Target their engines only. "Enemy weapons powering up," Lee shouted. Captain Park leaned forward in her chair. "Now, Mr. Choi. Activate quantum displacement." Engineer Choi slammed his hand down on a glowing panel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Phoenix shimmered and appeared to vanish from normal space. Aboard the alien flagship, alarms blared. "We've lost them," cried a sensor officer. "The human ship has disappeared." Admiral Kreck rose from his command chair, all 6 eyes widening in shock. "Impossible. Search all frequencies." Before his officers could respond, the Phoenix reappeared, directly alongside their command ship. But something was wrong. The sensors showed the human vessel in 3 places simultaneously. "What trickery is this?" demanded Kreck. The Phoenix, or rather the 3 versions of it, opened fire. Not with conventional weapons, but with precisely calibrated energy pulses that targeted the aliens' communication arrays and sensor networks. The hegemony ships, suddenly unable to coordinate, began firing wildly, sometimes hitting their own vessels in confusion. The Phoenix continued to blink in and out of normal space, appearing at different points throughout the alien formation, sowing chaos wherever it manifested. Captain Park watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "Mr. Lee, target their command and control systems only. Minimize casualties." "Aye, Captain," Lee responded, fingers flying across his console. The gambit was working. The Phoenix was too small and too fast to target effectively, especially with its ability to seemingly teleport across the battlefield. The hegemony fleet, designed to operate as a coordinated whole, was falling into disarray. Back on Earth, military leaders watched in astonishment as a single ship managed to disrupt the alien invasion force. "It's working," breathed General Chen. "The quantum displacement drive is actually working." For the first time since the alien fleet had appeared in Earth's orbit, a glimmer of hope spread through the command center. The desperate gambit, sending their one advanced prototype against an overwhelming force, might just give humanity the chance it needed to survive. In space, the battle continued. The Phoenix danced between the stars, a single defiant spark against the darkness, proving that sometimes the smallest light can change the course of history. 6 months before the hegemony arrived, a nondescript research facility sat hidden deep beneath the mountains of South Korea. The world's top scientists worked day and night in this underground complex, racing against time. They knew the aliens were coming. A deep space monitoring station had detected the massive fleet's approach long before the public knew anything about it. Chief Engineer Do-Hyun Kim hunched over his workstation, his eyes red from lack of sleep. At 45, he was considered a genius in quantum physics, having written theories that most other scientists couldn't even comprehend. Around him, dozens of engineers worked on different parts of what would become the Phoenix's revolutionary drive system. "Dr. Kim, the simulation results are ready," said his assistant, sliding a tablet toward him. Do-Hyun studied the data and allowed himself a small smile. "It works. The quantum displacement field is stable." Across the vast underground facility, in a separate lab designed for materials research, Science Officer Yoon-ji Lee carefully monitored a test chamber where a small sample of metal seemed to shift and change under different lighting conditions. "Run the weapon simulation again," she instructed her team. "Use the highest energy setting." They watched as a powerful laser struck the sample. Instead of melting or breaking, the material appeared to absorb and redistribute the energy, glowing briefly before returning to its original state. "Perfect," Yoon-ji whispered. Her adaptive metamaterial hull plating was ready. Neither scientist knew exactly what the other was working on. Project Phoenix operated under strict compartmentalization. Only a handful of military leaders understood how all the pieces would eventually fit together. Captain Geo Park was one of those few. She had been selected to command the Phoenix long before the ship was built. While the scientists developed the technology, she studied every available piece of information about the hegemony, their tactics, their technology, their psychology. The aliens had conquered many worlds, and each time they followed the same pattern: overwhelming force applied with clinical precision. "They expect us to fight conventionally," Captain Park explained during a high-level briefing. "First with our military satellites, then with our fleet, and finally with ground resistance. That's what every other species has done." "And we won't?" asked a skeptical general. "No," Park said firmly. "We'll give them exactly what they expect to see, until we don't." The construction of the Phoenix happened in orbit, disguised as a commercial space station expansion. Key components were brought up separately, their true purpose hidden even from most of the workers assembling them. 2 weeks before the hegemony arrived in Earth's solar system, Captain Park met her crew for the first time. Each had been selected not just for their technical skills, but for their ability to think creatively under pressure. "What we're about to attempt has never been done before," she told them during their first meeting aboard the still incomplete Phoenix. "Our ship carries technologies that will seem like magic even to many of our own scientists." She walked them through the ship's primary systems. The quantum displacement drive designed by Do-Hyun Kim didn't just move the ship. It moved the ship's position in quantum reality, allowing it to essentially exist in multiple places simultaneously for brief periods. The tactical applications were revolutionary. "Won't the aliens detect the energy signature?" asked weapons specialist Juno Lee. "That's where Dr. Lee's hull plating comes in," explained Park. "It doesn't just protect us from weapons fire. It masks our energy signatures completely. To their sensors, we'll look like an ordinary vessel until we choose to reveal our true capabilities." The adaptive metamaterial could change its properties on command, absorbing energy, reflecting it, or becoming nearly invisible depending on the situation. Combined with conventional stealth technology, it made the Phoenix a ghost ship. "There's one more thing you should understand," Captain Park said solemnly. "Despite these advantages, we are still just one ship facing an entire invasion fleet. Our mission isn't to defeat them in direct combat. It's to create confusion and gather tactical data that Earth's remaining forces can use. As the crew prepared for their mission, engineers made final adjustments to the Phoenix's systems. Do-hyun Kim worked tirelessly on the quantum drive, fine-tuning its parameters. "The calculations must be perfect," he told his team. "A microsecond error could scatter our atoms across multiple realities." Meanwhile, Yoonji Lee supervised the final installation of her hull plating. Unlike conventional armor that was measured in thickness, her creation was evaluated by its computational capacity. The material contained billions of microscopic processors that constantly reconfigured its atomic structure. "It learns," she explained to Captain Park during the final inspection. "Each time it encounters a new type of weapon or scanning technology, it adapts. The longer we survive, the stronger our defenses become." The day before the hegemony entered Earth orbit, the Phoenix completed its final test flight in the shadow of Mars. Every system performed perfectly. As the crew prepared to return to Earth to await the invasion, Captain Park stood in the ship's observation lounge, looking out at the stars. Navigation Officer Hannah Kim found her there. "Captain, may I join you?" Park nodded. "Do you think we have a chance?" Hannah asked quietly. "The hegemony has never encountered a species that could challenge them technologically," Park replied. "They've grown complacent. They'll see us as primitive because that's what they expect to see. And when they realize they're wrong, by then, it will be too late." Park turned from the window. "Our greatest weapon isn't the quantum drive or the adaptive hull. It's the fact that they don't know what we're capable of." As the Phoenix took its position in Earth's upper atmosphere, hidden from the approaching alien fleet, final preparations were made. Each crew member checked and rechecked their systems. The revolutionary technologies that would soon be tested in combat remained dormant, their power signatures masked by Yoonji Lee's ingenious hull design. In his engineering bay, Do-hyun Kim monitored the quantum drive's core temperature. The system was stable but untested in actual combat conditions. Theory was one thing, reality could be quite another. "Core temperature nominal," he reported to Captain Park. "Quantum field generators ready for activation on your command." In the science lab, Yoonji Lee made final adjustments to the hull's programming. "Adaptive systems running at 100%, Captain. The material is currently mimicking conventional titanium alloy. Hegemony scanners will see exactly what we want them to see." On the bridge, Captain Park received these reports with outward calm, though inside her heart raced. Years of preparation, billions in resources, and the finest scientific minds on Earth had created this vessel. Now it all came down to timing and the element of surprise. "Tactical analysis of the hegemony fleet?" she asked. Shunho Lee studied his console. 812 vessels of various classes. Their formation suggests they're preparing for a standard orbital bombardment before landing ground forces. "As expected," Park nodded. "They always followed the same playbook. Predictable." Communications Officer Ja Won-yoon raised his hand. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the alien fleet. They're broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies." "Let them talk," Park replied. "Our silence will be interpreted as fear or technical inability to respond. Either works to our advantage." The Phoenix rose silently through Earth's atmosphere, its conventional engines leaving a heat signature that alien sensors would easily detect. This was intentional. They wanted to be seen, but seen as harmless. "Hegemony vessels are tracking us," reported Tactical Officer Lee. "They've designated us as a low-priority target." Captain Park allowed herself a small smile. "Perfect. They think we're just a scouting vessel or last-ditch defensive effort." She looked around at her crew. "Remember your training. When we activate the quantum drive, you'll experience temporal disorientation. It will pass quickly." The Phoenix continued its approach toward the massive alien armada. To the hegemony sensors, it appeared to be nothing more than a conventional warship, impressively advanced by human standards, but hopelessly outmatched by alien technology. Inside the ship, however, revolutionary systems waited to be awakened. The quantum displacement drive hummed softly in standby mode. The adaptive hull plating gathered data on every scan that touched it, learning and preparing to counter alien weapons. As they approached the front lines of the hegemony fleet, Captain Park gave the order that everyone had been waiting for. "Take us in, Lieutenant Kim. Standard approach vector, conventional engines only." She paused, then added, "And may humanity's spirit guide our hands today." The true capabilities of the Phoenix remained hidden, a secret weapon about to be unleashed against an enemy that had no idea what was coming. The aliens laughed at the lone human ship approaching their mighty fleet. Soon, that laughter would turn to confusion, then fear. Admiral Krek watched from the command deck of his massive flagship as the small human vessel approached. His many eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of amusement among his species. The puny craft looked almost toy-like against the backdrop of his vast armada. "Look at them," he chittered to his second-in-command. "Sending a single ship against our might. These humans are even more primitive than our reports suggested." Around him, the bridge crew of the hegemony flagship made sounds that translated roughly to laughter. The tactical display showed the human vessel's approach vector, direct and unwavering, as if it actually intended to attack. "Shall we destroy it now, Admiral?" asked his weapons officer, claws hovering over the targeting controls. Admiral Krek raised a limb in negation. "No, I want it intact. Such bravery, however misguided, deserves recognition. We will add this vessel to our collection of conquered species artifacts." He leaned forward, his exoskeleton creaking slightly. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Let them hear their conqueror's voice." Aboard the Phoenix, Communications Officer Jia Wan-Yun winced as the alien transmission came through. "They're broadcasting again, Captain. Should I put it on speakers?" Captain Geo Park nodded. "Let's hear what they have to say." The bridge filled with the strange, clicking language of the hegemony, quickly translated by the ship's computer into English. "Attention, human vessel," came Admiral Krek's voice, tripping with condescension. "Your futile gesture has provided us with momentary amusement. For this, we will grant you the honor of surrender. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Your ship will make an excellent addition to our Victory Museum." The aliens' laughter echoed through the bridge before the transmission cut off. Captain Park looked around at her crew, noting the tension in their postures, but also the determination in their eyes. "They're scanning us again," reported Science Officer Yunji Lee. "Standard electromagnetic spectrum only. Our hull is feeding them exactly what we want them to see." "Distance to their command ships?" Park asked. Navigation Officer Hannah Kim checked her instruments. 8,000 kilometers in closing. "We'll be within optimal range in 3 minutes." Captain Park turned to Tactical Officer Minja Kang. "Mr. Kang, are the quantum systems ready?" Kang nodded, his fingers hovering over his console. At just 32 years old, he was the youngest senior officer aboard, but his brilliant understanding of multidimensional physics had made him essential to the mission. "Ready, Captain." Targeting solutions prepared for all primary hegemony vessels. The Phoenix continued its approach, appearing to the aliens as nothing more than a conventional warship making a brave but doomed last stand. Inside, however, the revolutionary quantum systems hummed with building energy, masked by the adaptive hull plating. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Do-Yeon Kim monitored the power levels with intense concentration. "Quantum core at 95% capacity," he reported over the comm. "Ready on your mark, Captain." Admiral Krek watched the approach with growing anticipation. He had conquered 17 worlds, and each time there was a moment like this, a last desperate stand by the defeated civilization. It always ended the same way. This would be no different. "Tractor beams standing by," reported his operations officer. "We can seize control of their vessel once they're within 5,000 kilometers." "Excellent," Krek replied. "Prepare boarding parties. I want their captain brought to me alive." The minutes ticked by as the Phoenix drew closer to the heart of the alien fleet. On the bridge, Captain Park maintained her calm demeanor, though internally her heart raced. Everything depended on the next few moments. "We're entering optimal range," announced Hannah Kim. 5,000 kilometers to their command ship. On the Hegemony flagship, alarms suddenly blared. "Admiral," called out the operations officer. "They're accelerating. Power readings are spiking." Krek clicked in annoyance. So they choose to attack after all. Amusing. Target their propulsion systems only. Disable, don't destroy. Aboard the Phoenix, Captain Park gave the order they had all been waiting for. "Mr. Kang, execute quantum displacement pattern alpha. All hands brace for temporal shift." Minja Kang's fingers danced across his console, activating sequences that had only ever been tested in simulation. Quantum displacement in 3, 2, 1. Executing. For a brief moment, everything on the bridge seemed to blur. The crew felt a strange sensation, as if they were simultaneously in multiple places at once. Then reality snapped back into focus. But everything had changed. The Phoenix was no longer where it had been. In fact, it wasn't anywhere, and it was everywhere. The quantum displacement drive had shifted the ship partially out of normal spacetime, allowing it to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. On the Hegemony flagship, chaos erupted. "Admiral," screamed the sensor officer. "The human vessel has vanished." "Impossible," Krek hissed. "Find it." "Sir, contact at coordinates 227 to 883 416. It's the human ship." "No, sir. It's also at 992 to 115 773. I have it at 340 to 559 225 as well." The tactical display showed the impossible. The Phoenix appeared to be in 3 places at once, each version seemingly solid and real, each closing on different key vessels in the Hegemony fleet. "This is some kind of trick," Krek insisted. "A sensor malfunction. Target all contacts and fire." Aboard the Phoenix, all 3 quantum instances of it. Captain Park gave her next order. "Mr. Kang, deploy countermeasures and begin surgical strikes. Target their weapons systems first, then communications." "Aye, Captain," Kang replied, his face lit by the glow of his console as he directed the attack. The Phoenix, or rather, the 3 quantum shadows of the Phoenix, opened fire simultaneously, but not with conventional weapons. Instead, precisely calibrated energy pulses struck key systems on the Hegemony vessels, overloading their shields in specific locations and sending cascading failures through their power networks. The Hegemony fleet, suddenly facing attacks from 3 directions at once, responded with predictable confusion. Ships fired at the multiple instances of the Phoenix, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the quantum shadows, or were absorbed by the adaptive hull plating when they did connect. "They can't track us properly," reported Eunji Lee, monitoring the alien responses. "Their targeting systems are designed for ships that exist in a single location in spacetime." The Phoenix's quantum instances continued their precisely coordinated attack, darting between the massive alien ships with impossible speed and coordination. Each time the Hegemony thought they had a lock, the ship would seemingly blink out of existence, only to reappear elsewhere. On the Hegemony flagship, Admiral Krek watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet fell into disarray. Ship after ship reported weapons failures, communication blackouts, and navigation system crashes. "What is happening?" he demanded. "How can one primitive vessel do this?" His tactical officer had no answers. Nothing in their extensive conquests had prepared them for this. The humans had been assessed as a Class 3 civilization, barely capable of interplanetary travel. Yet here they were, deploying technology that seemed to defy the laws of physics as the Hegemony understood them. Captain Park watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "Mr. Kang, status of quantum displacement." "Maintaining stability at 87%, Captain," Kang replied. "We can hold this configuration for approximately 7 more minutes before we need to revert to normal spacetime." "Make every second count," she ordered. "Target their flagships next. I want their command structure disrupted." The Phoenix's quantum instances converged on the largest vessels in the hegemony fleet, including Admiral Kreck's flagship, specialized energy weapons, designed specifically based on the technology recovered from the crashed alien scout ship, bypassed the massive vessel's shields and struck with surgical precision. On his flagship, Admiral Kreck felt the deck shudder beneath him as systems began to fail throughout the vessel. "Main weapons offline," reported his tactical officer. "Long-range communications disrupted," added another. "Fleet coordination network compromised." For the first time in his long career of conquest, Admiral Kreck felt something unfamiliar: fear. This was not how battles were supposed to go. The weaker species always fell before superior technology and numbers. Yet somehow, this single human ship was tearing through his fleet like a predator among prey. "All vessels," he ordered, "concentrate fire on any instance of the human ship. Use all weapons." But the order came too late, and many ships couldn't even receive it due to their damaged communications. The Phoenix continued its attack, each quantum instance striking different targets with perfect coordination. Captain Park studied the results with careful attention. "Mr. Kang, 2 minutes until we need to revert to normal spacetime. Make our final strikes count." "Target, Captain?" Kang asked. Park pointed to the display. "Their flagship. Disable their primary power core, but be precise. We're not here to massacre them." The Phoenix's 3 quantum instances suddenly converged, focusing all their firepower on Admiral Kreck's flagship. The massive vessel shuddered under the precisely targeted assault. On the hegemony bridge, emergency alarms blared as lights flickered and systems failed. "Primary power core destabilizing," shouted the engineering officer. "Containment fields failing." "Emergency shutdown," ordered Kreck. "Divert all power to secondary systems." As the flagship's main power died, leaving it operating on emergency reserves, the Phoenix finally reverted to normal spacetime, becoming a single vessel once more. The strain of maintaining quantum displacement had taken its toll. The ship's systems glowed hot, and warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. "Quantum displacement drive offline," reported Do-Yim Kim from engineering. "Cooling cycle initiated. We'll need at least 30 minutes before we can attempt another displacement." Captain Park nodded. "That's all right, Mr. Kim. I think we've made our point." She looked at the tactical display, which showed the once orderly hegemony fleet now in disarray. Dozens of their most powerful ships drifted with systems disabled or malfunctioning. Their command structure had been disrupted, their coordination broken, and most importantly, they now knew that humans were not the primitive species they had assumed. The Phoenix had drawn first blood in what would become a very different kind of battle than either side had anticipated. "All stations, status report," Captain Park ordered, preparing for whatever would come next. Chaos reigned throughout the hegemony fleet. Ship captains desperately tried to contact Admiral Kreck for orders, but their communication systems flickered and failed. Emergency lights bathed alien bridge crews in eerie colors as they struggled to understand what was happening. Aboard the Phoenix, communications specialist Ju Han worked with intense focus. Her fingers flew across her console as she monitored thousands of alien transmissions simultaneously. At 34, Han was a genius in electronic warfare, having developed systems that could not only intercept but also manipulate enemy communications in real time. "I've penetrated their tactical network," she reported to Captain Park. "Their encryption is complex but follows predictable patterns." Captain Park moved to stand behind Han's station. "What are they saying?" "They're confused. Multiple commanders are requesting orders, but their chain of command is breaking down." Han looked up with a small smile. "They rely heavily on centralized command. Without clear orders from the flagship, most captains don't know what to do." "Perfect," Park nodded. Can you exploit that? Han's smile widened. Already on it, Captain. I'm sending false tactical data through their network. Half their ships think we're attacking from the North Pole. The other half think we're coming from behind Mars. On the main view screen, the hegemony fleet was visibly disorganized. Some ships moved to defensive positions around Earth's North Pole. Others accelerated toward Mars. Small collisions occurred as vessels tried to reposition without proper coordination. Captain, called Tactical Officer Minja Kang. The quantum drive cooling cycle is at 60%. We'll be able to displace again in approximately 12 minutes. Good, Park replied. But we won't need it right away. She tapped her communications panel. This is Captain Park to Earth Defense Command. Phoenix Phase 1 complete. The enemy fleet is in disarray. We've disrupted their command structure and communications. Request immediate launch of Operation Scattered Thunder. There was a brief pause before General Chen's voice came through. Confirmed, Captain Park. Earth's remaining forces are launching now. Well done, Phoenix. Around the globe, hidden launch facilities sprang to life. What the hegemony had thought was Earth's entire defensive force had only been the first layer. Hundreds of smaller, faster vessels now launched from underground bases, underwater facilities, and even disguised commercial platforms. These weren't the bulky, obvious military ships that the aliens had expected and already neutralized. These were next-generation fighters and corvettes, specifically designed to complement the Phoenix's capabilities. In the Phoenix's hangar bay, Flight Commander Taeyong Choi addressed his squadron of pilots. At 40, Choi was a veteran of countless aerial combat missions on Earth, now adapted for space warfare. His squadron consisted of 12 pilots flying advanced fighters that, like the Phoenix itself, carried technology the aliens had never encountered. Listen up, Choi said firmly. Phoenix has created an opening, but it won't last long. Our mission is to exploit the confusion and take out their secondary command vessels. Without coordination, their fleet becomes just a bunch of individual ships. Remember your training. Strike fast. Strike precisely, and don't get caught. Questions? There were none. These pilots had trained for this moment for months. Then let's fly, Choi ordered. For Earth. The hangar bay doors opened, and 12 sleek fighters launched from the Phoenix, their engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. Unlike conventional fighters, these vessels used a miniaturized version of the Phoenix's adaptive hull technology, making them difficult to track on enemy sensors. Captain Park watched from the bridge as Choi's squadron deployed. Mr. Kang, coordinate targeting data with Commander Choi. I want his squadron to hit their secondary command ships while we maintain pressure on their flagship. Aye, Captain, Kang replied, sending a stream of tactical data to the fighter squadron. Meanwhile, communications specialist Han continued her electronic assault. Captain, I'm not just intercepting their communications now. I'm inserting false orders that appear to come from their own commanders. Excellent work, Ms. Han. Park nodded. What kind of orders? Some ships are being told to retreat to defensive positions. Others are being ordered to fire on specific coordinates that just happen to contain other hegemony vessels. The results were becoming visible. The once orderly alien fleet was now in complete disarray. Some ships fired on empty space. Others accidentally targeted their allies. A few began to retreat from Earth orbit entirely, convinced they were following legitimate orders. In his damaged flagship, Admiral Krek struggled to regain control of the situation. Emergency power provided only basic functionality, and most of his command systems remained offline. Status report, he demanded. Communications are partially restored, reported his second-in-command. But the fleet is confused. We're receiving reports of multiple human attacks across the system. Impossible, Krek hissed. They can't have that many ships. It must be some kind of trick. Sir, new contacts launching from Earth's surface. Hundreds of them. Krek turned to the tactical display in disbelief. The small dots representing human vessels were appearing everywhere, rising from the planet's surface like a swarm of insects. How did we miss this? He demanded. Our initial scans showed only minimal defensive capabilities. They must have hidden their true forces, his tactical officer suggested. The vessels appear to be smaller and faster than anything we've encountered from them before. Flight Commander Choi led his squadron through the chaotic hegemony formation. The alien ships were massive compared to their fighters, creating a dangerous obstacle course of moving metal and energy weapons. Stay in formation, Choi ordered over the squadron frequency. Target Package Alpha. They're secondary command ships. Use the confusion to your advantage. The fighters darted between the massive alien vessels, their adaptive hulls making them appear as little more than sensor ghosts. Each fighter carried specially designed EMP weapons that could overload key systems without destroying the entire ship. Target locked, reported Lieutenant Mijin Park, Choi's wingman. Firing. Her fighter released a pulse of energy that struck an alien command ship precisely where its communications array connected to the main power system. The entire array exploded in a shower of sparks, leaving the vessel effectively deaf and mute. One by one, the squadron struck their targets with surgical precision. Unlike the hegemony, which relied on overwhelming firepower and brute force, Earth's fighters used speed, stealth, and precise strikes to disable rather than destroy. Back on the Phoenix, Captain Park monitored both the fighter squadron's progress and the larger battle unfolding across Earth orbit. Hand's electronic warfare combined with the Phoenix's earlier quantum attack had created the perfect conditions for Earth's counterattack. Captain, called Science Officer Yunji Lee, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from several hegemony vessels. I believe they're attempting to adapt their shields to our weapons. As expected, Park nodded. They're learning. Ms. Han, new priority. Focus on their research vessels. Disrupt any attempt to analyze our technology. On it, Captain, Han replied, redirecting her electronic attacks. Throughout the hegemony fleet, confusion turned to fear as more and more ships lost contact with command or suffered precision strikes from the human fighters. The aliens had expected a simple conquest, a primitive species falling quickly before their superior technology. Instead, they faced an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move and exploit weaknesses they didn't know they had. On Earth, military commanders watched in amazement as the tide of battle shifted. What had seemed like certain defeat hours ago now looked increasingly like humanity's first victory against the invaders. It's working, General Chen said in wonder as he watched the tactical displays at Earth Defense Command. The Phoenix's strategy is actually working. Not just working, replied Admiral Rodriguez beside him. Look at their formation. It's completely broken. They're fighting as individuals, not as a fleet. This was the key to the human strategy. The hegemony had conquered 17 worlds through perfect coordination and overwhelming force. But when that coordination was disrupted, when their communications were compromised, and when they faced an enemy using technologies they didn't understand, their advantages quickly evaporated. Flight Commander Choi's squadron completed their initial attacks and regrouped for a second assault run. All fighters report, Choi ordered. One by one, his pilots confirmed their status. Remarkably, all 12 remained operational, though 3 reported minor damage. Phoenix actual to strike leader, Captain Park's voice came through on Choi's comm. New target package uploading now. Priority is their troop carriers. We need to prevent any ground invasion. Understood, Phoenix, Choi replied. We're on it. The fighters changed course, heading toward the massive troop carriers hanging back from the main battle. These enormous vessels carried thousands of hegemony soldiers, ready to begin the ground invasion once orbital superiority was secured. That invasion now looked increasingly unlikely. Aboard the Phoenix, Captain Park allowed herself a moment of cautious optimism. Status of the quantum drive, Mr. Kim. Cooling cycle complete, Captain, the chief engineer reported from his station. Quantum displacement available at your command. Stand by, Park ordered. We'll use it when they least expect it. The battle had shifted dramatically in just 30 minutes. The hegemony's carefully orchestrated invasion plan had collapsed into a chaotic melee where their superior numbers actually worked against them, causing confusion and friendly fire incidents. In his damaged flagship, Admiral Krek made a difficult decision. Order all vessels to regroup at coordinates 887 to 334,009. We need to re-establish command and control. But sir, protested his second-in-command, that would mean abandoning our orbital position around Earth. Do it, Krek hissed. This battle is not proceeding as expected. We need to reassess. As the orders went out, many hegemony ships began to break away from Earth orbit, moving toward the designated coordinates. Others, still cut off from communication, continued fighting in isolation. Captain Park watched this development with interest. They're retreating to regroup, she observed. Ms. Han, can you intercept their rally coordinates? Already done, Captain, Han replied. Sending them to tactical now. Park nodded to Minja Kang. Mr. Kang, prepare the quantum drive. It's time for Phase 2. As the battle continued around Earth, the tide had clearly turned. What had begun as humanity's desperate last stand had become the hegemony's first taste of defeat, and it was a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. The Phoenix drifted in high Earth orbit, battle scars visible across its once pristine hull. Inside the medical bay, Dr. Hyunjin Song moved efficiently between injured crew members. At 52, she was the oldest person aboard the ship, with decades of emergency medicine experience. Her steady hands worked quickly as she sealed a gash on Engineer Do-Hyun Kim's forehead. Hold still, she instructed. The regenerator needs 10 more seconds. Kim winced but remained motionless. How bad is it, doctor? You'll have a story to tell your grandchildren, Song replied with a small smile. But no permanent damage. Throughout the medical bay, other crew members were being treated for various injuries, burns, fractures, and concussions sustained during the 12-hour battle. The Phoenix had emerged victorious but not unscathed. On the bridge, Captain Geo Park surveyed the damage reports flowing in from all sections of the ship. The quantum displacement drive was offline, likely to remain so for days. 2 of their 4 main engines were damaged. The adaptive hull plating functioned at only 60% capacity. Yet they had survived. More than survived, they had won. Status of the hegemony fleet? Park asked, her voice showing the fatigue of the prolonged battle. Tactical Officer Minja Kang, sporting a bandage across his left arm, checked his console. They'd withdrawn to the coordinates we expected, Captain. Approximately 300 million kilometers from Earth. They're maintaining position there. And our forces? Earth Defense Command reports minimal losses. Communications specialist Ju Han reported, her uniform torn and dirty, but her focus unwavering. 14 fighters lost out of 200 deployed. 3 corvettes heavily damaged. The Phoenix suffered the most extensive damage of any human vessel. Park nodded solemnly. Each lost fighter meant a pilot who wouldn't return home. Even in victory, there was a cost. She would remember those sacrifices. Captain, Han suddenly straightened in her chair. I'm receiving a transmission from the hegemony fleet. It's different from their previous communications. The encryption is more complex, and it's directed specifically at the Phoenix. Source? Park asked. Not from Admiral Krek's vessel, Han replied, looking surprised. This is coming from a much larger ship that just arrived at their rally point. Based on the communication protocols, I believe it's from their Supreme Commander. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Throughout the battle, they had faced only a portion of the hegemony's forces, commanded by Admiral Krek. The Supreme Commander oversaw the entire conquest fleet across multiple star systems. Can you decode it? Park asked. Han worked her console for several minutes, her brow furrowed in concentration. Yes, Captain. It's a request for direct communication, not a demand. A request. Put it on screen, Park ordered after a moment's hesitation. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing an alien figure. Unlike Admiral Kreck's aggressive posture and dark exoskeleton, this being appeared older, with a pale, almost translucent outer shell. Multiple eyes blinked in sequence as it regarded the human bridge crew. "I am Supreme Commander Xelk of the Galactic Hegemony." The alien's words were translated by the ship's computer. "I address Captain Geo Park of the vessel Phoenix." Park stood, straightening her damaged uniform. "This is Captain Park. I receive your communication." "Supreme Commander." The alien made a gesture that the translation software couldn't interpret. "Captain Park, the events of the past 12 hours have been unexpected. In 17 conquests spanning 8 decades, the hegemony has never encountered resistance of this nature." "We fight for our home," Park replied simply. "Yes," Selk responded. "This much is obvious. What is less obvious is how a species classified as barely capable of interplanetary travel has deployed technologies unknown even to our most advanced research divisions." Park allowed herself a small smile. "We are full of surprises, Commander Xelk." Indeed, the alien's multiple limbs shifted in what might have been discomfort. "I have relieved Admiral Kreck of his command for his failure to properly assess your species' capabilities. This error in judgment has cost us significantly." In the background of the transmission, other aliens moved about what appeared to be the command center of a massive vessel, many times larger than Kreck's flagship. "I have reviewed the battle recordings," Selk continued. "Your vessel's ability to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously is fascinating, as is your adaptive hull technology. These are innovations the hegemony has theorized but never successfully implemented." "We had strong motivation to accelerate our research," Park replied diplomatically. Selk made another untranslatable gesture. "Captain Park, I did not achieve my position through stubbornness or pride. The hegemony conquers because it is efficient. When conquest becomes inefficient, other approaches must be considered." Park raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting, Commander?" "I am suggesting, Captain, that I would like to meet with you. Not as conqueror and conquered, but as representatives of our respective civilizations, to discuss alternatives." The bridge crew exchanged shocked glances. In all recorded history of the hegemony's expansions, they had never negotiated with a species they had targeted for conquest. "What assurances do we have that this isn't a trap?" Park asked cautiously. "A reasonable concern," Selk acknowledged. "I propose neutral territory. The third moon of your planet Jupiter. Equal delegation sizes. No weapons. Our ships to maintain equal distance from the meeting site." Park muted the transmission temporarily. "Opinions?" she asked her officers. "It could be genuine," suggested Science Officer Yunji Lee. "We've demonstrated technologies they clearly want to understand better. Or it could be a ploy to capture you and learn our secrets," countered Tactical Officer Kang. Communications Specialist Han looked thoughtful. "Their communication patterns have shifted significantly. Earlier transmissions were dominated by aggression markers. This one shows patterns consistent with genuine diplomatic overtures." Park considered this, then unmuted the transmission. "We will need to consult with Earth's leadership, Commander Xelk. But speaking for the Phoenix, I am cautiously open to your proposal." The alien's outer shell seemed to lighten slightly. "Understood, Captain Park. We will maintain our current position and await your response." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Did that just happen?" Engineer Kim asked, having arrived from Medical Bay just in time to witness the exchange. "Did the hegemony just ask to talk instead of fight?" "It appears so," Park replied. She tapped her communications panel. "Phoenix to Earth Defense Command. We need a secure channel to General Chen immediately." While waiting for the connection, Park turned to her crew. "Whatever happens next, you should all know that what you accomplished today has never been done before. You've changed the course of history." Medical Officer Song entered the bridge, looking tired but satisfied. "All injured crew members are stable, Captain. No life-threatening conditions." "Thank you, Doctor," Park replied. It seems your work isn't finished yet. We may need you to prepare for a diplomatic mission. Song raised an eyebrow. Diplomatic? With the hegemony? It appears we've earned their respect, Park explained, or at least their curiosity. The secure channel to Earth opened, and General Chen's face appeared on screen. He looked exhausted but elated. Captain Park, the entire planet is celebrating. You've done the impossible. Thank you, General, but our work isn't done, Park replied. I've just received a communication from the hegemony's Supreme Commander. They're requesting diplomatic talks. Chen's expression shifted from joy to suspicion. After trying to conquer us, now they want to talk. I believe we've changed their calculation, Park explained. The Phoenix demonstrated technologies they've never seen before. They're reassessing whether conquest is the most efficient approach to dealing with humanity. Later, as the diplomatic mission was being prepared, Captain Park stood in the observation lounge, looking down at Earth. The blue planet seemed peaceful from orbit, showing no signs of the battle that had nearly decided its fate. Medical Officer Song joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. For the hero of Earth, she said, offering one to Park. Park accepted the cup but shook her head. Not a hero, Doctor. Just someone who was in the right place at the right time. You're too modest, Song replied. Your leadership made this victory possible. They stood in comfortable silence, sipping their tea and watching Earth turn slowly beneath them. What do you think will happen now? Song finally asked. Park considered the question. Best case, we establish diplomatic relations with the hegemony, perhaps even a peace treaty. Maybe our demonstration of advanced technology will convince them that humanity is worth dealing with as equals rather than subjects. And worst case, this is a delaying tactic while they bring in reinforcements, Park acknowledged. But I don't think so. The Supreme Commander seemed genuinely interested in an alternative approach. So we changed their minds by showing them we could fight back. Park smiled slightly. We changed their minds by surprising them. The hegemony has conquered so many worlds that the process had become routine for them. We showed them something new, something unexpected. That's the real victory here. We made them question their assumptions. 2 days later, as the diplomatic delegation prepared to depart for Jupiter's moon, Captain Park addressed her crew one final time before the mission. What we achieved was not just a military victory, she told them. It was a victory for human ingenuity and adaptability. The hegemony thought they knew exactly what they would find here, another primitive species to be easily conquered. Instead, they found a civilization that could match and even exceed their technology in key areas. She looked around at the faces of her crew, some still bearing the marks of battle, all showing pride in what they had accomplished. Whatever happens next, remember this: we have earned our place among the stars not because we were stronger or more numerous, but because we were innovative and unpredictable. Those qualities will serve humanity well as we step onto the galactic stage. As the shuttle departed for the historic first diplomatic meeting between humans and the hegemony, the Phoenix remained in orbit, a symbol of humanity's unexpected rise from potential conquest to potential ally. The ship that had changed the battlefield had also changed humanity's future among the stars.